Welcome to another one of our garage framing videos with a loft, and this is where we take a 20-foot wide by 24-foot deep garage and provide you with a few different design and construction ideas. And in this video here, we are going to provide you with something that might or might not save you a few dollars. And that will be to install a floor beam down the center of the garage in either direction. So for example, in this video, we have the beam running parallel to these walls here. However, you could always change the direction of the joist or rotate the joist 90 degrees and install a beam in the other direction, whatever is going to work best for you. So not too complicated. And in our examples here, the ledger will be bolting to the wall framing. However, if you're using one of our other methods where the floor sits on top of the wall framing, then you would use the same methods in either videos to assemble the perimeter of the floor framing. And in this video, I am going to do something a little different. Something you might do to save a few dollars will be to use 2x4s here instead of framing with 2x6 all the way across. And then of course you could fur out the wall framing studs or wait until the end of the video and I will provide you with another method to fur this out. And of course we will need our fire blocks. And if we use this method here, we're going to need to fill this area in to provide us with two things. One, as another way to block off this area for our fire blocking, and another for the floor sheathing nailing. And this can also be done by moving this joist all the way over to here and then adding a small filler piece here. I don't really see a problem with that. And since we're filling in a 2-inch section, we're going to use a 2x4 and a 1/2-inch piece of plywood. However, you can use whatever you want. You can actually rip a 2-inch piece down to size if that's going to work better for you. And our beam will be sitting on top of the garage header. And I went ahead and made the garage header a little wider. And your garage header might even need to be larger. And since it is going to be carrying a lot of weight, I went ahead and put a 4x6 in here to support everything. However, your project might require something completely different. Remember, these are just ideas on how something like this might be able to build. I am not a structural engineer and cannot provide you with structural engineering information. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at a view from above. And I believe our joists are just a little bit over 9 feet. And by installing the beam and the post and the additional concrete footing and all of the additional hardware, hangers, whatever you're going to need to do something like this, you're going to be spending a few more dollars, but hopefully you can make it up with smaller lumber sizes, smaller floor joist. However, I will let you figure out if that's going to be better for you. And as I mentioned, we are going to need a concrete footing to support the post that's going to be holding up the floor, or should I say half of the floor. And we do have a post base connector here to connect the post to the concrete footing. And if you can, make sure that the bottom of the hardware is sitting on top of the concrete so that we can have a little bit of a separation point there between the wood and the concrete. And something like this might require an inverted hanger. So here we have an inverted hanger or a concealed hanger and then a strap to connect the beam to the post. Your engineer might require a post to beam connector and even different hangers to make that connection. And the framing connections for our stairwell. Remember, our stairway is going to go in this area here. And you will need to make sure that this section here is nice and straight. If this is sticking out a little bit or in a little bit, it will affect the finish of that section, especially if you're going to drywall it. So again, a beam here that runs all the way to a post. However, you might be able to save a few more dollars by installing another post in here. And the way you will save money by installing another post and of course another concrete footing will be that it might allow you to reduce the size of the beam here. And for those of you who are planning on building a garage like this yourself, might allow you to put a smaller beam in here. So we would have a beam from here to here and then another separate beam from here to here. So again, another option. However, for those of you who have never had a two-car garage with a beam located in this area, then you're probably not going to be familiar with the fact that when you get out of your car, and that would be either car, the car on this side or this side, you might not be able to open your car door. So make sure that you move the post over a little bit. And by moving the post over a little farther, you might need to install a larger beam here and then a smaller beam here. Next up, let's take a look at something else you can do to save a few dollars on the building hardware. And that would be to raise the floor high enough so that the floor joist will sit on top of the beam instead of buying expensive floor joist hangers. And if you raise the floor, you could always raise the exterior walls to compensate for the changes made below. And of course the floor joist will lap, and then you will nail the joist so that you can create a nice structural connection between the two that will hopefully prevent the walls from spreading when you're building a project like this. And I won't go into much detail on that because I think I've already covered that in quite a few of these videos. So we've gotten rid of the inverted hangers. Stairwell is basically the same, and we'll simply run a row of blocks down the center on top of the beam. And of course, the beam here will still be located in the same spot that the other beam was located, because we're not raising the beam, we're raising the floor. And if you need to raise the floor higher, then you'll simply extend the length of the support here and the height of the posts. However, everything else will probably be assembled the same. And let's go ahead and wrap this video up by taking a look at the fire blocking and the wall furring. So I simply raised the fire blocking up a little bit so that I still have my fire blocking here. However, I am now going to have the lower section of the furring for the interior wall if I'm going to install drywall. So if I'm not going to install drywall, or I don't mind having a little cubby hole here, then I don't need to fur everything out. But by simply raising this board up, I can stop the floor sheathing here and then finish the wall with either drywall or plaster. And again, we have a 2-inch area, so we have an 1.5 inch wide board and a 1/2 inch wide board. Or in some cases, you might need to use an 1.5 inch board and a 3/8 of an inch piece of plywood. And I realize that doesn't sound like it's going to work, but trust me on that. I can't tell you how many times I have installed a 1/2 inch piece of plywood for furring like this, only to end up disappointed because this board here is going to stick out a little bit. However, I have never had that problem with 3/8 of an inch plywood or OSB, and sometimes it's going to be better to have it sticking in just a little bit than out just a little bit. And as always, if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comment area.